Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second episode of Bear Down Ballers for the 2024-25 Arizona Wildcats season. I'm Ryan Wall, joined again by Jordan Pollock. And Jordan, the Arizona Wildcats started the season off strong with a big win against Canisius. Last night, as we're recording this, they won by 29 points. How are you doing today? And what are your first thoughts on this victory?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. We're recording right now. It's Election Tuesday. That's a big deal for our country, so it's cool. I would say get out there and vote, but the viewers will be watching this after, hopefully, maybe after we have the election results. That'd be cool. But I'm doing great, man. It was a great Arizona win, and basketball season's back. Yesterday was a great day of college basketball.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great day. There were some ranked matchups, some major schools playing each other. We normally don't see much of that. Arizona was one of the top 25 ranked teams that were playing more of a lower level opponent in Canisius, as I could put that. Like I said though, 93 to 64, won by 29 points. And Caleb Love led the way with 17 points. He had 6 assists, and Jaden Bradley had 15. KJ Lewis had 14. Those were the top three scorers of the night. We'll get into Caleb Love in just a minute, Jordan. But my biggest takeaway from this game was a question that I had on our first episode is would KJ Lewis, would Jaden Bradley take that next step forward? And I know it's against a lower level opponent, like I said, but Jaden Bradley and KJ Lewis were excellent in this game. They were aggressive. They were getting to the hole. They were finishing with confidence. And to me, they really worked well together. KJ, Love, and Bradley, all three guards, all acting as the primary ball handler at one point or another. But I was really impressed with how this Arizona team looked, and especially the guards in this first game. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we spent a few minutes last episode talking about Jaden Bradley and kind of how he was going to fit into possibly point guard duties, and I thought he did a great job. I thought he played with a lot of anticipation. He set guys well. He set guys very well up on his passes. He got the ball up the court super quick, and I think that's a very underrated thing about Bradley is he's got speed, but he's got ball handling speed, and those two things can be very different. And just his ability to weave in and out of defenders and get to the rim, I think, was fully on display last night. He played a great game. He even had a really cool highlight where he got a steal right after a layup he had and got another bucket. And I think that just shows kind of the explosiveness that he brings and how well he can get to the rim. And he even made a three on top of that, which is great. And it's gonna just add another tool in his toolbox and give defenders another thing to think about.
Yeah, you mentioned that steal. That wasn't the only one he had. Finished with 4 steals on the night. Very impressive by Jaden Bradley. He's so aggressive on defense in the passing lanes really well. But those three guards, the starting guards, Bradley, Love, and Lewis, they combined for 14 assists, which is really impressive. And I think that's going to be the thing of this season. I don't think one of them is going to have 8, 10, 12 assists a night. Yes, maybe one of them will at some point. But more to me, I think it's how those guys complement each other and just the total number of assists I think is what they're looking for because they're all going to make an impact in one way or another. But yeah, I really liked the progression from those guys and Caleb Love, especially on his end. He got off to a good scoring touch and he displayed that, but then he kind of he couldn't really find that scoring touch later in the game, but he really was affecting the game as a passer. He was really looking for his other teammates, and it seemed like he was more willing to pass, which we've seen in Caleb Love's collegiate career that sometimes he just wants to shoot the ball, and he wasn't that. He's playing more team basketball. I really like that. What do you think of Love?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think finishing with 17, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds, I think is very complimentary basketball. And I think that's a big thing that's going to lead this team to a lot of wins of their star players. If somebody's going, get them the ball and help out in the in the tough battles for the boards and trying to help set your teammates up in well positions. And that's a huge thing that specifically Caleb does really well. He's a huge scorer and teams know that. So because of that, they're going to add an extra defender in passing lanes. And so if he takes advantage of that, that's just going to help this team and propel them to a lot more success.
Yeah, I agree. And we know Caleb is going to have 20, 30 point plus games during this season like he always does. He still is that guy for Arizona late in games to me that you give the ball to and let him create offense. But it really is great to see Caleb growing as a player. 2 years ago, watching him at his last season at UNC, I didn't think I would see this version of Caleb Love ever. And it's great to see it while he's wearing an Arizona uniform. But getting to two of the big men on this team and the two guys that started in the front court for this game, as we know, Mo Krivas suffered an ankle injury a couple weeks ago. He came off the bench, only played 10 minutes. I want to get to him in a little bit. But before that, Trey Townsend, Toby Awaka, those two guys were in the front court. Trey Townsend couldn't find his scoring touch in this game. Was only 1 for 4, only finished with 2 points. Did have 6 rebounds, though, affected the game there. But I really liked, out of those two, I really liked how Awaka played. He had 4 points, but he did have 9 rebounds, and he really was physical down in that paint. He brought that physical presence that this team, if it wasn't for Awaka, is lacking because Balo was that physical presence. He's gone. So I really like that from Awaka. What'd you see from him?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think finishing with more rebounds than the other team. I know Canisius had 25 and Arizona finished with 43. That's always a big thing for any team really to be able to outwin the rebound battle because that means you're limiting their offensive possessions and you're increasing your offensive possessions and able to even get in transition. And I know that's a big thing for this team. They're very strength on getting guys the ball and getting them to go up the court and pushing the pace and scoring. And so that's just a big thing that this team really needs a lot from just everybody in the front court. And I think it is going to be a group by committee kind of thing. Like we've talked about, Umar Balo isn't in this lineup. That's not a double every night. And there isn't one of those kind of guys on this team. I think we could possibly see somebody kind of develop into that. I think especially with Mo Krivas and what he showed last year. And once he gets healthy and they're being really careful with him because ankles aren't a thing to mess with. You being a Philly guy, no, feet for big men are
Yep.
pretty they're pretty
Yep.
important. So
Yeah.
they're doing a
True.
good job of putting him back in the lineup slowly. And I thought he played really well in the 10 minutes. And Henry Vasar I thought played really well too, helping out also in the scoring capacity. But Henry Vasar offers, I think, a little bit more than Owaka and Krivas do. He's got a little bit more perimeter game. He added a 3 last night. Um, and so I think this team has a lot of balance. They don't have the exact same kind of guy everywhere. They've got a little bit of little bit of a different kind of guy with a different toolbox in every single one of the front court positions.
Yeah, I think that sums it up perfectly. And Henry Visar and Mo Krivas, they are two European bigs. They're over 7 feet each, and I was really impressed with both of these guys. To be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of Visar. I didn't really think he had that much potential moving forward, but I would, out of him, out of all the big men, I probably was the most surprised and impressed by Henry Visar. 8 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Like you said, he added that 3-pointer, 17 minutes of action. He looked like a guy that could really play in key moments off the bench, and even he maybe could work himself into a starting role. I wouldn't be shocked if he's closing games or if he's starting games in that starting lineup this
Yeah,
season
I agree.
because like I said, I don't think Mo Krivas is labeled that like he's that guy that was supposed to be in the starting lineup if he didn't get injured. But like, why is he already propelled over a guy like Visar? Why can't it be a competition between which one of those guys maybe slides into that starting spot? Because I do think it's not a knock on Toby Awoka. I think I said I really liked what he provided for Arizona in this game, but I do think Visar or Krivas maybe he won't be the primary starter, but will start a lot of games for this team this season at some point or another. But yeah, I really liked what I saw from Visar. I think him and Krivas, the one area they need to work on a little bit is just learning how to finish stronger when they're at the basket and finishing through contact. Sometimes when they get hit or there's a double team draws, they kind of shy away. They need to see that contact, take it on, draw the foul more often. But otherwise, I was really impressed by those two guys. And Jordan, I want to know, is there anybody else in this game who stood out to you that you really felt made an impact?
Yeah, I thought KJ Lewis played really, really well. I know you talked about him earlier, and I just want to touch on the ability of him to kind of be able to kind of almost pick and plug anywhere. He's rolling under the rim. He's getting balls down there and making spin away from the basket moves off the glass. He hit a three. I think that's a huge part of his game. I think that I would love to see him be able to get hot in moving forward because that'll just add another dynamic and make this team even harder to stop and him just being athletic and getting the ball out in transition on the wing, I think is going to be huge for this team. So I'm excited to see him continue to build on kind of what we've seen so far this offseason is he's right now he's the guy that's going to be probably I think the most NBA ready. And so it'll be fun to see how he develops through the year and how much he can up his NBA draft stock.
Yeah, for me, for KJ Lewis, I think the sky's the limit for him. I think he's only going to improve as he progresses, grows into that starting role as a whole. So I really have loved the way that KJ Lewis looked. But Jordan, I want to move on and talk about the next game for Arizona. They're playing Old Dominion. They're playing them this Saturday at Arizona. It's a home game. It's taking place at 4 o'clock here on the East Coast, but in Arizona, it's Mountain Time, so it'll be at 2 p.m. local time. But Old Dominion is coming off of a pretty crazy game against Buffalo the other night. They lost 83 to 82, so a nail biter there. They fell to 0-1, but they did have a really good game. And one of the things I think Arizona is going to be tested with is their elite 3-point shooting. They made 12 threes, 40%. They had four guys in double figures, so they spread the rock around. But what are you expecting for this game? Do you expect another blowout of sorts, or do you think that it'll be a little bit closer?
I think I do. I think it's like again early in the season against these mid-major programs, it's kind of hard to gauge the talent and kind of what's there. I think looking back, Buffalo won 4 games last year. That is hard to do, I think, for really any program. And so for them to pull out a win at Old Dominion is where it looked like it was at. I think it's likely going to be an Arizona win, and I don't expect Old Dominion to really be in this game too much.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I expect Arizona to continue to roll here. And in that game against Canisius, throughout basically in the second, I mean, that game was basically over at the end of the first half. And in the second half, in the final, about 8 minutes, 5 minutes, that range, Tommy started to work in the walk-ons, the backups, and everybody got their chance in that game. So I really think that Arizona still, that was kind of an appetizer against Canisius. They didn't get to show everything that they had because their guys didn't play as much as they normally would. Awaka played 20 minutes, Townsend 26, Lewis 22, Love 21, Bradley 23. So none of them even went close to 30 minutes really. So
Yeah.
yeah, I expect more of the same this weekend before they get into a really, really tough stretch that we talked about last week when they play Wisconsin, then they play Duke, and then the battle for Atlantis. But in this next game against Old Dominion, Jordan, is there anybody that you're looking to kind of step up and show you something more?
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I think the front court just continue to kind of develop and see how they're gonna mesh and play well together. I think we saw Trey Townsend. He led the team in threes again in their exhibition game, and so him only shooting one of four, I think, I'm sure to a lot of fans kind of seemed like a drop off. Especially we talked about how much hype he kind of was getting after their great run in the NCAA tournament with Oakland last year. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of forms his role on this team. Like, is he going to be a score and not kind of guy, or is he, if it isn't his night in the scoring department, is he going to help in other ways? And I think another thing to look for in this Old Dominion game is Old Dominion. They got one guy that had a pretty great game last night. Robert Davis Jr. had 25 points last night, shot over 50% from the field, 6'6" guard. So it'll be fun to see. I expect Trey Townsend to guard him and KJ Lewis to kind of split duties on him. So as a high scoring guy, he played at UMass last year, so he's a transfer. So it'd be interesting to see kind of that matchup, I think, with some bigger
Mhm.
guards and how Arizona can throw bodies at him.
Yeah, Davis only at UMass last year only averaged, I believe, 5 points a game. So
Yep.
from 5 points to transferring to 25 in game one, pretty impressive by him. But yeah, I kind of agree with Townsend, and I kind of expected more. Obviously, this is one game, but yeah, after seeing him knock down so many threes and him being a knockdown shooter, I expected him to not even have more points, but just his volume to be higher. I mean,
Definitely.
he only attempted 4 shots in this game, which is not a lot at all. It seemed like he was a little hesitant, kind of just working in the flow because we know last year he was he was basically a number one to one B option
Yep.
kind of on that Oakland team. So he was never really, he was always heavily involved. So I do think that is something to watch out for. It's something that I think takes an adjustment period from going from a guy who's scoring 18, 20 a game to a guy that maybe isn't going to score as much, but like you said, needs to figure out different ways to different ways to make an impact. That's for sure. Anthony Del Orzo against Canisius was 1 for 9. Did finish with 7 points. He seemed like he couldn't find his shooting touch there. And then another guy who's been primed to have a breakout season. That is Conrad Martinez. He was pretty good. I mean, he had 5 points. He only had one rebound, but he seemed comfortable running the offense when Bradley was out, when Lewis was out, and Love. And I really, because we didn't see a lot of him last year, but I really think I think he can carve a little role for himself out there for the second unit.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. He even in his minutes last year, I thought he played pretty well. He got quite a bit of buzz, I know, from how well he was putting it to Jaden Bradley last year and Kylan Boswell in practice. So and the backcourt was just super deep last year, and so I'm sure it was super hard to just kind of get him minutes. So it'll be interesting to see how he can carve a role as well, with him and Del Orzo coming off the bench.
Yeah, overall, Jordan, I think obviously we've seen Arizona win by 40 and 50 in some of these first game or two over the last couple years. It wasn't a 40 or 50 point win, but I think Arizona got a lot accomplished. I think this group is going to take a while, as we've talked about, to grow and to improve. But overall, I thought this was a good game, and I expect it seems like we both expect more of the same against Old
Yep.
Dominion. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in and joining us for this week's episode of Bear Down Ballers. Follow us on X at Bear Down AZ Pod.